money, mo problems. According to ESPN, Bill Connelly, if the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, elect to add a ninth conference game, that's going to bring in more revenue. But it is going to cost them playoff spots. Holy smokes. Welcome to episode 437 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's not waste any more time. We will put a link in the description box below the video. Bill Connelly, ESPN, moving to 9 conference games might cost the SEC 1 to 2 playoff teams per year. The SEC Commissioner, Greg Sankey, talked a lot this week. He went on the Paul Feinbaum show. He talked about a scheduling partnership with the Big Ten. He increased the fines for field rushing. He talked about which playoff games should or will be on home campuses. He talked about how long this formatting process takes. He scoffed at being told to serve the good of the game, and he spent a lot of time telling everyone how hard the SEC schedules are. On Thursday afternoon, the SEC provided members of the media with a 6-page packet that included the color-coded charts using multiple metrics to illustrate the league's dominant schedule strength. Sankey said the task for determining the CFP strength of schedule component is striking a balance between human and machine, referring to the old BCS computer formula. The packet included ESPN's Strength of Record, Bill Connelly's SP+, Kenneth Macy's metric, ESPN's Football Power Index, and ESPN's Strength of Schedule metric. Sankey seemed to have two primary goals for bringing up the strength of schedule. For starters, it seemed like he wanted to remind everyone that Alabama and its 9-3 record didn't get into last year's 12-team CFP, despite the strength of schedule numbers quite a bit stronger than those of the higher-ranked teams such as SMU, Boise State, and Indiana. He said that decision left him with critical questions about the committee and its process. Now, all the strength of schedule advantages in the world didn't stop Bama from losing at 6-6 Vanderbilt and 6-6 Oklahoma. In the latter game, Alabama couldn't have looked less playoff worthy, losing 24-3 to the Sooners. It was a dreadful game. Maybe the Tide would have gotten in with a formula approach, but they showed no indication that they could make a playoff run at the end of the season. Plus, we know that the playoff committee took Alabama's strength of schedule into account because it ranked the Tide ahead of 11-2 Arizona State, ahead of 10-2 Miami, and ahead of 10-2 BYU, among others, despite how they looked at the end of the regular season. Thank you, Bill Connelly. Thank you for putting that out there. Once again, we've been talking about this for months. Alabama's strength of schedule did come into play. It helped them, but it still wasn't enough by very small margins, no question about it, but they just did not get the votes in the committee. I believe the committee got it right. Many people think they got it wrong. Let me know once again in the comments section below the video what you thought about the selection committee's decision on the playoffs for 2024. If Bama had lost to only one of Vandy or Oklahoma, the Tide would have almost certainly been in the field of 12, and they'd have definitely been in the field of 16 regardless, along with 2 other 3 losses SEC teams, Ole Miss and South Carolina. Again, if it was a 16-team, 5+11 playoffs for last year, the SEC would have cleaned up. And yet, still Sankey doesn't like what the committee did. Unbelievable. Also, Sankey didn't mention that the committee place a one-loss Bama team ahead of an unbeaten Florida State team in the CFP rankings just 1 year earlier. If we want to talk about formula, let's talk about formula, but the SEC has been treated with extreme kindness by the committee on average. If we're not confident that the decision making about who gets in and why and what are the metrics around it, it's going to be really hard for some of my colleagues to get to 9 games. Trev Alberts, Texas A&M athletic director, why make your schedules harder if it will cost your conference playoff bids, right? There are plenty of valid reasons for moving to 9 games, regardless of what it does to playoff status. For starters, it will likely increase the value of SEC media rights, giving the league even more of a war chest. It would make teams' home schedules even more exciting and potentially expensive for those buying the tickets. And most importantly, it would make the 16-team conference feel like an actual conference. With a 9-game schedule, you can play every team twice in 4 years. With 8-game schedules, those rotations take a lot longer. Bill Connelly, ESPN. Because we're using numbers to prove that SEC schedules are already difficult, let's use numbers to ask a different question. How much more difficult would a 9-game SEC schedules be? To answer this question, Bill Connelly did what he does. I ran a simulation. I created 4 years worth of 9-game schedules based around the super clean, super easy idea of permanent conference rivalries. You assign every team 3 permanent annual opponents, and they play 6 other opponents home and away over 2 years. Then the other 6 over the next 2. Viola. You've visited every stadium in your conference and hosted every conference made at least once every 4 years. I've been floored that the other huge conferences, such as the Big Ten and the Big 12, haven't leaned further into the permanent rivals concept. The 16-team Big 12 isn't making Farmageddon an annual game, and the 8-team Big 10 conference didn't set up annual games between all of its 4 new Western teams. Regardless, I set up permanent rivals for each SEC team. So what Bill Connelly is doing, he's going to simulate SEC regular seasons, conference regular season games, and first he posts the 3 permanent rivals for every SEC team. I'm not going to read them off here, but you can look at them. Bama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, and their respective permanent rival games. Missouri, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. Overall, now this is where we get to the data. Overall, according to Bill Connelly, SP Plus ratings, simulating these regular seasons with 9 conference games. Overall, an average of 6.2 SEC teams are projected to go 9-3 or better in 2025. In a 9-game universe, 9 conference games, that average shrinks to 4.7. With a 16-team field, you could say that the league would go from expecting around 6 teams in the field to having 4 or 5 teams safely in and campaigning for some 8-4 teams. Meanwhile, the league would also go from an average of 13.4 bowl eligible teams to just 11.4. So, what does all that mean? What does all that mean? Bill Connelly is saying to you all and saying to me that if the SEC goes from 8 conference games to 9 conference games in a 16-team playoff format, 5 plus 11, that the SEC conference is going to lose an average of 1.5 teams, 1.5 playoff spots on average. 1.5, and 2 bowl eligible teams going forward if they go from 8 conference games to 9 conference games. So even the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, the best football conference in the country from top to bottom, again, going from 8 to 9 creates more losses in the conference. It doesn't make you look so good. It takes the shine off. Look, the Big 12 has been experiencing this for years. We all talk about Big 12 parity. Yes, there's Big 12 parity, but 9 conference games will do that to you. It's more losses in the conference. The Big 10, people are always saying, well, the middle of the Big 10 ain't all that good. I disagree. Last year, the Big 10, the middle of the Big 10 was pretty damn good. But again, you're playing 9 conference games. That brings in more losses into your conference. It makes it a little bit more difficult to become bowl eligible. It makes it a little bit more difficult for there to be that 3rd, 4th, 5th playoff team out of your conference in a 16-team playoff format if we are going to go to the 5+11. More money, more problems for the SEC. If you bring in that 9th conference game, if you're going to go to 9 conference games, you are going to have less teams make the playoffs. If you go to 9 conference games, you're going to have less teams be bowl eligible. If you go to 9 conference games, you're going to bring in more money. You're probably going to have a Big 10 scheduling agreement. And, well, if you go to 9 conference games, let's be honest, the data show us that the SEC is probably going to pull the trigger and agree with the Big 10 on the 4-4-2-2-1-3 concept. Because on a 5+11 world, going from 8 to 9 doesn't do a whole lot for you. It does bring in more money, but it gives you more problems. Put down your comments in the comments section below the video. Episode 437 is the Southeastern Conference, the SEC, gonna finally pull the trigger, going from 8 conference games to 9. There's a lot to think about, and we are going to keep covering this story and everything else in college football until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.